All right, Joe. George says that we're active. Can you confirm that we're good to go?
Sharon, I've got it up on my phone. It looks like it is active now.
Okay. Joe, go ahead, Joe.
It sounds like we're good to go.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Do we start over again?
Yeah.
All right. Looks like it's on. Take two.
Do I need to say all are present? Are we starting from the very beginning?
I don't know when that went out or if we were never on.
I don't think we were ever on. We might as well just go ahead and start from the very beginning.
All right, let's do that. So sorry for the delay, folks. We thought we were live and clearly we had some technical difficulty and it was not broadcasting. So we're just going to begin again with a welcome to the November 23rd, 2020 regular school board meeting for Lakeshore Public Schools. Let's do this Pledge of Allegiance once again. Please rise with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. And Amy's going to get twice the attention tonight. It is harder to notice with this style of a board meeting, but we do have a new board member with us tonight, and I'd like to welcome our newly elected board member, Amy Thomas August. All right, thank you. And then Ms. Munger, you can repeat roll call, please.
All are present.
All right. And earlier we did not have our call for our single registered audience participant. Do we have that person now? Caller has not connected. Okay. All right. Dr. DePonio, please do the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. So we have some county updates and some obviously things that are going on throughout the district. A lot of the discussion I'll hold off until we get into the recommendation for altering a bit of the schedule after Thanksgiving. But just to kind of recap where we've been as a district to this point, as you recall, back in March, an executive order closed down schools throughout Michigan. At the conclusion of the school year, we convened 3 separate groups to focus on the development of health and safety protocols, the delivery of instruction, and social emotional protection for our students and staff. We opened in September to in-person instruction, offering a hybrid approach to learning for our families that sought in-person instruction, and of course, a 100% virtual option for those that were not ready to return to school. The hybrid approach, since we were opening in the midst of a pandemic, and we had never done that before, we opened cautiously and slowly at a very significantly reduced capacity. And during that time period, our students went to school twice a week. They were half days. Our students went to school once a week, 25% capacity for half days to measure our safety protocols and how we could do at keeping kids and staff in masks, providing social distancing, the hand sanitizing, the washing, all of the challenges that we've never faced before Lakeshore Public Schools history. During the month of September, we had 0 cases and we had 0 quarantines. And those numbers, those low numbers, those non-existent numbers mirrored what we saw throughout the county as there were low cases in the county. In the month of October, and what we're talking about is a timeline that goes from board meeting to board meeting. So from the September board meeting until the October board meeting, we increased our in-person instruction. Our students were now going A day, B day. They were going full days. Everyone was virtual on Mondays, and everyone continues to be virtual on Mondays. And during that time period, we had 9 confirmed cases of COVID and 42 resulting quarantines. And what we saw during this time period was that all of these cases were being brought into Lakeshore Public Schools that we do not believe, nor does the health department at that particular point, that transmission was occurring in the school district. From last school board meeting until this one, our numbers have grown significantly, as they have throughout the county. We had 46 confirmed cases between the last school board meeting that week of Halloween, and we've had 180 quarantines that have occurred during that same time period. In some of these cases, and when I share these numbers, these are numbers that are virtual students, that are hybrid students, cases that we believe were obtained outside of school, and we do have one particular case that we believe transmission occurred inside of school. But again, with this, there's no absolute way to tell what has occurred there, other than the fact that we've had confirmed cases of those numbers. It's obviously created a lot of concern amongst staff. Fortunately, in most of these cases, the illness that's occurring is not significant. It's not to minimize the illness that has occurred, but we're not seeing significant illness. However, the quarantines are an issue for staffing, and as we've provided updates to the board throughout the weeks, that's a significant challenge that's occurring not only with Lakeshore Public Schools, but county and statewide as well. The latest health order from Michigan Department of Health and Human Services shut down high schools, a pause in high school learning until December the 9th. All of our high school students are currently virtual. And after tomorrow, our students will be on Thanksgiving break, actually beginning on Thursday. But when we come back that following week, and we'll get into it, we'll be making a recommendation to pause learning for a week, so that any cases that might arise over the extended holiday weekend, the vast majority of those will present themselves prior to anyone returning to school. The 14 days that we have heard in terms of quarantine, the information that we've received from the health department has narrowed down that timeline, that the vast majority of cases present themselves between 4 to 7 days of exposure within Macomb County. We meet at this point, it's almost twice a week with other county superintendents, the Macomb ISD, and the Macomb County Health Department. And at this point, as we continue to try and provide in-person learning to students, not at all costs, because the health and safety of our staff, the health and safety of our students is priority. Obviously, it's the first priority. It's also important for us to continue to try and provide some in-person learning to students, and give them the services that they need. We rely on the health department to provide us guidance in the moment that they say it is not safe for us to operate, whether it's at a particular building or if it is district-wide, then we would immediately close and revert to virtual. And if it was for an extended period of time, I would come to the board and we would propose a longer period of time if that's what we're looking at. Staffing obviously is a consideration as well, and if we can't staff the buildings, then we would be forced to have some type of temporary closure as well. But at this point, we continue to operate as best we can, as safely as we can. We believe that in school, kids are wearing their masks, and kids are utilizing hand washing techniques and hand sanitizer, and as best as we can possibly have occur, social distancing is being adhered to. What we're finding county and statewide is that when people get outside of that environment, that they're letting their guard down a little bit. And this is when cases start to pop up. So I will, ask our community to follow CDC guidelines that have been recommended this holiday season. I know that is a big ask of all of us. Everybody here values family. Everybody here values moments like this. But in order for us to continue to operate safely, we've got to get these cases in a manageable situation. And so with that, the only other thing I'd like to add, and this is I don't know if it's certainly a bit of good news for the work that's been done with our food service department, but it's concerning that it would be utilized to this extent. Our food service department distributed over 4,000 meals today for the week coming up. So I'm very appreciative of the work that Tina and her team have done. But it's also obviously concerning that we would have so many people that would be utilizing that opportunity to receive a free meal. And we will continue to provide those and be on the lookout through social media and of course, through emails and the website to provide that information. And so with that, I'd be happy to take any questions from the board.
Okay, Joe, I have just one point of clarification, and it was just about wording. You said the request was going to be to pause learning. You mean to pause face-to-face learning? Correct.
Yes. Thank you, Sharon. Absolutely. We want to get the very best out of all of our students as we advance forward. And a pause in face-to-face does not mean a suspension of learning. We will continue to learn in every capacity that we're capable of doing with the resources that we have. So for anyone that might have taken that sound clip and put that out there, we are open for business. It will be virtual pending board approval, and of course, as I said, we'll get into that.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments for the superintendent?
Hey, Sharon, it's Josh. I have I think just a couple of comments. So first, just for the folks on the stream, I know Dr. DePonio, he went through all of that very, very quickly. As we kind of need to do, we could be here for hours talking about our response. I just want to let, kind of some of the folks that are watching know that, is your Board of Education and leadership team are constantly feeding information back to us. It is on at least a weekly, if not a daily basis since the pandemic that they're bringing information to us, and we're having with them and asking questions. And so, Joe just summarized in 5 minutes is a constant effort. But I want to make sure that known and to express my personal appreciation for Dr. rest of it. The second is just a comment about those 4,000. That number's kind of nuts to me. That's a lot of meals. So I'm very grateful to our food service team. They have always taken awesome care of us and of our students. I think it's a great thing that we're able to bless our community, support our. But wow, does that? I think about the impact this pandemic is having on the community if we're handing out, 4,000 meals in a single day. So thanks for the team that's doing that. And that's really all I have.
All right. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Dr. DePonio. All right, we will move on to agenda item 6A, which is the oath of office, and Mr. Ziegler is going to assist me with that.
Okay, Sharon,
Yep.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Please,
Okay.
please stand, raise your right hand, and recite the oath of office.
Okay, thank you. I, Sharon Bartle, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of office as a member of the Lakeshore Public Schools Board of Education to the best of my ability. All right, thank you. And I'm going to relocate to
Welcome
the position. Thank you. Okay. I will lead on the next one, which is Ms. Munger. So would you please stand, raise your right hand, and state the oath of office?
I, Elizabeth Munger, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office as a member of Lakeshore Public School Board of Education to the best of my ability.
All right, you too, welcome back. All right, Mr. Cowling, please stand, raise your right hand, and state the oath of office.
I, Daniel Cowling, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office as a member of the Lakeshore Public Schools Board of Education to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, and our newest member, Mrs. Thomas August. Please stand, raise your right hand, and state the oath of office.
I, Amy Thomas August, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office as a member of the Lakeshore Public Schools Board of Education to the best of my ability.
All right, Amy, first for you. Congratulations. All right, and I probably should have said this beforehand, but that was a result of the recent election and the some board members being reelected and Mrs. Thomas August being elected for the first time. So we do believe, and I'll speak for the others here, it truly is an honor to represent the community. And I haven't worked with a board member that didn't take that responsibility to heart and really do the best for the students of our district. So again, congratulations to each of you. At this time, our outgoing board member, Mr. Bakotic, would also like to say a few words.
Thank you, Sharon, and I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words here tonight. First off, I'd like to congratulate everybody who was reelected. To Ms. Thomas August, congratulations on joining the board. I know that you're going to do a great job and you'll take good care of the seat that I'm vacating tonight. And yeah, I do remember, I think I sent an email to you, and I do remember when we were here, I think in August of 2019, when we met and we were being considered for the vacancy. I don't remember what that conversation was specifically. I couldn't tell you what we talked about, but the one takeaway that I remember from that evening was your passion for the community and the passion for being involved with our school district. So carrying that forward, I know that yeah, you'll be a great representative for the community here. And if one thing I remember from that night is saying that anyone at that meeting would have done a fine job representing the school board and the community, and I meant that. So I think that you'll do great. Congratulations again. I did want to say it's been an honor and a pleasure to be on the board to serve. The relationships that I've built in the time here have been spectacular, and I look forward to continuing all of those relationships, even though I may not be doing it as a board member. And yeah, and being a part of this Lakeshore family, it's been a real family experience, and I'm definitely not, I may be moving out like the college kids that move on as seniors, but I'm not going to be gone. So I'll definitely be around, and I look forward to seeing everybody and participating in new ways once that's available to me. And yeah, lastly, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that I served with, and thank you to the people who did support me out there. That was quite a humbling experience just to be involved in my first election like this. The last time I was involved in something like this was in college when I was running for student representative. So this was a little more serious, and it was definitely humbling to see that kind of response and to be able to do that. But I thank you, everybody. Good luck with this school year, and good luck, Miss August. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. That was very kind of you, and we appreciate the service and the dedication that you've shown our kids as well. Thank you so much.
Hey, Sharon.
Yes.
Can I just say a couple knowledge, Mr. McCodak?
Yes.
Thank you. So this is to me such a bittersweet moment, because like Mike said, I'm so excited to have Amy join the team. From her interview and just some of our brief interactions, Amy, I know that I am, we're gaining a great board member, but we're losing a great board member. Mike has been a fantastic colleague, fantastic for the team, and fantastic friend.
Josh, let me interrupt you for just a moment, because for me, you're breaking up pretty badly.
Oh,
Are you breaking up for the others? If you guys could just nod. You are.
okay, never mind.
No, I don't want you to miss opportunity here, though. Maybe we should have Josh call in so we have better audio, even though we won't have video.
Sure, I can do that. Not sure if you can hear me say I can do that, but I can do that.
I did, actually. Do you need the contact number? And if so, can an administrator put it in the chat?
I have it. I will drop off and dial right back in.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to wait for you. All right, we will pause and let him connect so that he can make his comments. And then it's also been brought to my attention that our audience participant is now connected. So after Mr. Denzler, we'll backtrack to the audience participant. All right, I believe we have Mr. Denzler, and you can go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry about that, folks. Of course, the one time I'm saying something nice and not saying something snarky is the time it doesn't actually come through. But I just want to take a couple seconds to acknowledge Mr. Bakotic. I'm super excited to have Amy joining our team. From her interview and some of our brief interactions, I know that Amy is going to be such an asset to the board. But we're gaining a great board member, I'm sure, but we're losing a great board member in the process. And so I just wanted to thank and acknowledge Mike for just really a high caliber of service, being a great colleague, a great leader, and a great friend. Mike and I had the pleasure of interacting through a couple of conferences and getting to know one another. And he's been a great leader. He's a great dad who loves his kids and wanted to jump in and be a part of the community. And he's still a part of the Shorian family for many years with a couple of young ones. But just really wanting to acknowledge he had such a valuable perspective, particularly with his legal background, and he just brought so much to the table. And I know Amy's going to bring every bit of that, but I just, before hopefully Mike hasn't dropped off yet, I just wanted to take some time to acknowledge him, because it's been a real pleasure to serve with you, Mr. Bakotic, and I hope one day we'll get to join forces back on this board again. So that's all I have. Thanks for accommodating all of my tech issues today.
All right, thank you. Anybody else need to speak at this point?
Well, Josh made me worried that Michael was going to drop off the call, so I guess I should get my comments in before he does that. Want to say congratulations to Amy, of course. I've had the pleasure of sort of working with Amy on the Lakeshore Foundation. After those interviews for board members, she got involved with the foundation and has been definitely a great addition to that team. So, Michael, she will need a replacement on the Lakeshore Foundation board. So I think Jack will be happy that I put a plug in for that. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, because like Josh said, your contribution to this board has been really incredible. Your perspective as a father of two young young students in the district has been really important to have, especially during this difficult time. So I just appreciate everything that you've given to this board, even in such a short amount of time. And I hope that you'll stick around and, consider us when positions come open again. So appreciate everything you've done. Thank you, Amy, for putting your hat in the ring, because I know that you'll be a great board member as well. So just wanted to say that before you leave, Michael.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, looks like we can move on. All
I
right.
just want to say thank you, guys. I appreciate those comments. And yeah, I was here to listen to them. So thank you again.
Okay. All right. So we are on agenda item 6. I'm sorry. We were going to pause and go back to our caller. Audience participation. Is our caller connected?
I am connected. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Could you please state your name and address? And then we have a 5-minute time for you to speak to the board, not necessarily in an interactive way, but your opportunity to speak to the board.
Absolutely. My name is James Jackson, 22913 Socia. I have a son who attends Violet Elementary. And first off, I'd like to thank the board and Dr. Tonio for your efforts in keeping the schools going and in-class instruction rolling for these kids. So I'm not going to take up 5 minutes, but my wife and I are blessed to be able to have her stay at home and watch the kids. And my 7-year-old, who's in 2nd grade now, is having a lot of trouble with the online stuff. Having to run after 3 different kids going in all kinds of different directions, him being the oldest. It's really hard to actually find the time to sit down, give him the attention that he is asking for, and help. His teachers are doing a fantastic job when he is in school, and he is getting the instruction that he needs. And it is my fear that if we do stop going in person, that we will lose out on that. And as a whole, the students in our district and across the country are really missing out on the education that they deserve and need. So with that being said, I just really wanted to stress the point that we need to push for in-person to continue. And I understand, and I think that is a very smart move to take a pause for a week right after Thanksgiving. Makes perfect sense. But in the long term, just making sure that they are continuing in person is of utmost priority to me. And, I, for one, would be willing to even come in, get there at 6 a.m., wash the school down. I will shine doorknobs for you. Whatever it takes to make sure that these kids are getting the attention and the time that they need. And, I can just feel for the parents that don't have time like we do, don't have a 2-person household that can actually take the time and educate their children. And, so thank you for keeping that going. And thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me tonight.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Jackson. And I will say, those wonderful offers from so many of our parents, this is where that kind of offer landed me. There was quite a few years ago, I was that parent at Violet Elementary saying whatever you need. And here I am today. So we appreciate your comments, and you never know where you're going to end up with Lakeshore Schools. We appreciate your involvement. All right. We're going to jump back to the agenda item 6B on the audit presentation by Mr. Basili.
Okay, so we have the 2019-20 audit presentation. Chris Geck from Plant Moran will present the 2019-20 audit for Lakeshore Public Schools. He'll be reporting on the district's overall financial position, including 2019-20 net position, budget to actual variances, and accounting system reliability. The annual audit is required under state law for all Michigan public school districts. All 13 district funds were audited. So just a couple of the highlights. For 2019-20, we had a net loss in the general fund of $719,000. However, that was after the $600,000 August proration the state imposed, which is $175 per student. If we take out that proration, our net loss was only $118,000, which is pretty close to budget. And considering that we lost 38 students this year for a loss of $324,000, we had increases in healthcare and MEPSers, and we have some COVID hazard pay expenses, and we also had across the board pretty much employee compensation increases. We did a good job of limiting the bleeding overall in terms of where we're at. However, we did have a slight decline in fund balance from 12.4% a year ago to 10.5% on June 30th of 2020. So that's still healthy. It's still double digits, but it is trending downward a little bit. This is our second consecutive net loss year. So the key moving forward is going to be fund balance management, especially with the new environment we have at the state level with stagnant school aid fund revenues, declining enrollment across the state, potential future prorations as the Senate Fiscal Agency has informed us to be ready for that. And we still want to continue giving compensation increases. So we have a challenge over the next couple of years in that respect. But without further ado, without stealing Chris Geck's thunder here, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Geck from Plant Moran to start his presentation.
Yep, thanks, Pete. I'm going to click the Present Now button here and see if I can pull up the presentation, see if that works here. Bear with me. Okay, don't want to pull up.
Chris, while you're getting that running, I'll just say hi and welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you all. Always wishing for better circumstances these days, but I'm glad we're able to do this virtually. Can you all see the presentation here?
Yep.
I can.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I had the presentation up now on the screen and just wanted to give the highlights. Thanks for that introduction, Pete. And, my name is Chris Geck. I'm from Plant Moran, and we recently completed a couple audits for the district. Our audits include the basic financial statement audit for all the funds, as Pete mentioned, for fiscal year ended June 30 of 2020. And then we also completed an audit of the district's federal programs as well. Happy to report tonight that we're able to issue an unmodified opinion on the district's financial statements. That's the highest form of assurance that an auditor can opine on a set of financial statements. And what that means is that the numbers presented in the financial statements are materially accurate. In terms of the federal programs, this year we were required to test 3 programs. We tested the Child Nutrition Cluster, the IDEA program, which is special education, and then we also tested the employment service contracts that are through the Workforce Development Board. So 3 programs that were tested this year, and happy to report that all 3 programs, we did not have any compliance findings, and we did not have any internal control issues to report related to compliance with controls and other matters over grants. So a clean opinion on both audits. And that was definitely not an easy feat this year, as mentioned on a lot of the conversation throughout this board meeting. You know, there's a lot of increased regulations, rules that districts got to comply with related to the pandemic. Additional reporting, you know, all kinds of different work that's entailed, you know, above and beyond the normal day job that everyone at the district has, you know, even without the pandemic. So happy to report that the district's records and books were in good shape. Everyone was prepared for the audit. Audit was completed within the time that we had planned on, and everything went off without a hitch, even despite the current situation. So appreciate the entire district's and business office assistance in getting through the audits this year. It was not a small feat. All right, so with that, I'll get into some of the numbers. This first slide here is looking at the numbers for the year ended, again, June 30 of 2020. The first column is the government-wide set of financial statements. This takes all the district's funds into one financial statement, and then also adds in certain levels of reporting that only happen at year end, so full accrual level reporting that doesn't happen in the fund level financial statements. This includes numbers like capital assets, long-term debt, and then most notably the GASB 68 and 75 NIPSERS pension and retiree healthcare liabilities. Those get added into this level of reporting as well. When you look at the district from this level of reporting, you'd see that net position is a negative $82 million, which is a significant deficit position. But one thing to keep in mind is that all districts in the state of Michigan when they had to record those GASB 68 and 75 liabilities, which all districts in Michigan do, that put all districts in the state of Michigan in a deficit position when you look at that full accrual level of financial reporting, which is a government-wide level of reporting. If the district did not have to adopt that standard, which is about 5 years old now, you would take out those liabilities, which again are significant. The net position would be positive. It'd be $6.3 million in the positive direction. So a pretty significant impact to all districts in the state when that standard did come out. Just for some perspective, the overall plan level liabilities for the NIPSERS plan, which is a state-run retirement system for all the district employees, that is underfunded by approximately $33 billion at the end of 2020, and then approximately $7 billion underfunded for the OPEB portion, the GASB 75 liability portion. What the state does is they take the district's contributions for the year divided by the total contributions for all districts in the state of Michigan. And that's how they come up with each district's proportion in terms of what portion of the liability needs to get pushed down to district level financial statements. And so that is how those numbers come about into that government-wide level of reporting there. Conversely, if you look at just the general fund, the total fund balance is positive of just over $4 million. And lastly, too, just to keep in mind, so though those are large numbers, the 86 million and the 18 million, keep in mind too that that is not a number that's requiring the district to, write a check tomorrow to pay off that liability. There's no statement that's being made to the district to pay that liability now. That's really an accounting mechanism to recognize that liability, and that number gets amortized over a long period of time based on the contributions that get made each pay period throughout the year and years to come. Based on current payroll. So that's how that number will eventually go down. On the next slide, I wanted to focus a bit looking at the actual results for just the general fund for 2020 compared to what the budget was in terms of the final budget amendment that was adopted in June of 2020. So as was mentioned, the total change in fund balance for the general fund was a decrease of about $719,000. That was compared to the budget that was adopted again in June of 2020, which was planning on a use of fund balance was just over $300,000. So if you look at that from a variance perspective, the budget accuracy was very close on revenue, 98.19% accurate, and expenditures 99.29% accurate. So very close budgeting there. If we look at the thresholds, as mentioned, what the fund balance thresholds were as a relative comparison to expenditures, 10.5% would be the ratio at year end on your actual numbers if you look at fund balance as a percent of expenditures, which is a common measure of fund balance health for districts. The budget was set at 11.5%. And if you look at where you were at the end of last year, which last year had a reduction of fund balance of about 112,000, 12.4% was the ratio last year. Just for some perspective, the statewide average, I believe this average excludes Detroit Public Schools, but the statewide average for districts based on audits submitted last year, 6/30 of 2019, which is the most recent data available, the statewide average was about 14.2% across the state. So just some perspective to see, where Lakeshore compares to on that average. Fund balance is important to maintain for various reasons, but one of the most significant reasons relates to cash flow as well. So districts, and we're going to talk about state aid on one of the future slides here in the presentation, that comes in 11 even installments throughout the year. And so that missing month is September. And so the district still has payroll to make, payroll occurs and other disbursements are made throughout the month of September. And the districts are required to use their fund balance if they're not borrowing in state aid notes in order to make those payments until they get that October state aid payment, which is the next one in the next fiscal year that they would receive. So maintaining adequate fund balance does help districts to not need to borrow from state aid notes if they're not already borrowing to maintain that cash flow to make those payments. So something to keep in mind as well as you're looking at your fund balance. This next slide here, I know looks very similar to the previous one. You'll notice though in the title, this says with no proration. So as was mentioned, there was a lot of uncertainty this year in June when districts were adopting budgets. Typically, and at least in historic years, districts have known what the state's budget is prior to adopting that final budget amendment in June. And so that equates to also knowing what the foundation allowance is going to be in June before adopting that final budget amendment, and then also setting your budget for the next fiscal year. And so that has a big impact on how budgets are set in June. This year, there was no state budget yet for the next year. And then there was also talk about a potential proration to the tune of $650 to $750 per student that could impact fiscal 2020, but it wasn't certain yet. So districts were left with making a decision of how to account for that in the budget. Account for no proration, account for the full amount, or account for somewhere in the middle in their budget. And so Lakeshore in their final budget assumed no proration, just given the uncertainty in that. And so fast forward to August of 2020, after that final budget was adopted, actual proration was $175 per student. So this slide here is just showing, what the numbers would have looked like if there was no proration compared to the budget. You can see here that, revenue, that would be even more accurately budgeted for at 99.76%. And the expenditure number there, no changes there, as the primary change was related to the proration, which just impacted the revenue line. So again, without that proration, the decrease to fund balance would have been less significant, $118,000. So you can see down at the bottom of the slide, the impact of the proration was about $600,000 in terms of the revenue impact to the general fund this year. And you can see the impact there. The 12% would have been the ending fund balance as a percentage of expenditures had that $600,000 not been taken back in proration. On this next slide here, touching on just the general fund revenue of just over $37.6 million for this year. You can see that the vast majority of general fund revenue is in the form of state funded sources. They're 83% of total general fund revenue. And the bulk of that's going to come from the foundation allowance. We're going to talk about that on one of the next slides as well. 7% of local revenue, that's primarily from property tax collection. And then 7% federal, that would be the federal programs, including those 3 programs that I mentioned that we tested this year. Next slide, we're looking at just the general fund expenditures by function, or as what could be referred to as department. Total expenditures were just approximately $38.4 million for 2020. You can see here the biggest area in terms of where expenditures were used, or in terms of the function code, was instruction and instructional support. So 71% was spent within that function code. And then rounding it out with 14% in general administration, business and central services, 13% in operations, maintenance, and transportation. Next slide is looking at the same expenditures for the general fund, same total amount, but a different view. This is what's referred to as the object code view, or how do we spend the resources within the different function codes. And so you can see here on this slide, 90% would be the most significant allocation, salaries and benefits. And benefits would include things like the MISRS contribution when we talk about the state-run retirement program, healthcare benefits, payroll taxes, and other employee fringe benefits. So I know it's a significant amount of where the general fund resources are spent, but the nature of a school district is providing instruction, which is a very people-intensive operation, and so it would not be uncommon to see a very large percentage of the total expenditures in a district spent in the areas of salaries and benefits. A typical range for Michigan school district is approximately 80 to 90%. So within that range, but you'd be on the higher end of what you typically would see in terms of a range of 80 to 90% across the state. Next slide here is looking at the ending fund balance right at June 30 of 2020. Again, total fund balance is just over $4 million at the end of the year. A couple different breakdowns or components, if you will, in terms of how fund balance is classified on the balance sheet. These are all within accounting standards, which is referred to as GASB 54. The first category there, non-spendable, is $415,000. That includes assets that are on the balance sheet that have been paid for, but are going to be expended as expenses in future years. So prepaid assets are typically the amounts that are included within non-spendable. Unassigned is the leftover portion in the orange piece of the pie there, 402,000. That's what's left over when we look at what's remaining from all of the other allocations compared to total fund balance. Assigned, unused sick leave, 965,000. That's the total long-term liability that's recorded on the full accrual financial statements related to accumulated leave time for employees. So that's the actual earned dollar amount that will get spent down or paid out over time. And so those dollars are earmarked as assigned fund balance within the general fund. The largest portion there, the assigned portion for next year's budget, the just over 1.9 million. That's based on what the initial budget was adopted for fiscal 2021, which was put in place and adopted in June of this past year, 2020. And so that initial budget for fiscal 21, that anticipated a planned use of fund balance of $1.9 million during fiscal 2021. So again, just keep in mind that's based on the original adopted budget. Accounting standards require that if that budget that shows a planned use of fund balance for next year is adopted, that you report it that way at June 30, even though future amendments could happen throughout 2021 that could change that number. So keep in mind that's just a snapshot. The other portion there, committed deferred maintenance plan, 267,000. That'd be based on the deferred maintenance plan that the board has within their policies. A few thresholds here that are important to note on this slide as well. 5% is a threshold when the state has early warning thresholds in terms of reporting requirements back to the state in terms of what the plan is to increase fund balance. That's viewed in terms of a percentage of fund balance compared to unrestricted revenue. If you look at Lakeshore's fund balance as a percent of total revenue at year end, 10.9%. So that's kind of the difference of where the district stands compared to what that 5% early warning threshold is. On this slide, we're looking at the foundation allowance that the district receives per student. For fiscal 2020, there was approximately 3,431 students multiplied by the 8,354 net that was received this year. That's net of the proration. Equates to approximately $28.6 million in terms of total revenue from just the foundation allowance in the general fund in fiscal 20. So a pretty significant portion of the overall revenue the general fund receives. And that all ties into the previous slide we looked at where we saw that 83% of total general revenue, general fund revenue is from the state. A big portion of this is from the foundation allowance by taking that student count multiplied by the foundation allowance that the district gets per student. So pretty big piece of the overall resources. You can see here that, and this is all districts that took this cut going from 2011 to 2012. And that was a cut of $470 per student. So again, all districts in the state received that cut. That was from the budget issues the state had back from the Great Recession. And you can see here it's been a very slow climb to get back to what the funding levels were pre-2012. And so actually this year, 2020, was supposed to be the first year that the district was going to get back to having levels that were at least 2011 funding levels. The original foundation allowance was an increase this year of $120 per student. So again, this would have been the first time that the district would have been above that 2011 threshold. And so what happened was, again, we had that proration that hit all districts of $175 per student that came in August state aid payment. That ended up being a net reduction for the district of $55 per student when you look at it on a net basis. So again, the district was finally going to be above that threshold this year for the first time since 2011. But because of the pandemic and the impact on the state budget, we're back down to still being below those 2011 levels. One thing to keep in mind too is, costs have continued to increase pretty much in all facets of school districts, and in terms of the MIPSers, pension requirements, healthcare costs. Costs have gone up across the board since 2011. And so, as you can see, funding still isn't quite at what 2011 levels were, and districts are being continued to see the pressure of doing more with less. So that's something to keep in mind as you're looking at this slide as well. For 2021, the plan thus far that's been communicated is that the proration is not going to continue. into 2021. And then in addition, there's a one-time increase of $65 per student that districts are receiving. So the number going from the $83.54 to the $85.94, that's basically last year's number, but add back the $175 that was deducted for proration, and then add the $65 one-time only for fiscal 21 additional amount per student. And so $85.94, just keep in mind again that $65 is not part of the new base foundation allowance. So fiscal 21 is now the first year since 2011, so 10 years that funding has been restored to greater than what it was back then. Just another few highlights here. As mentioned, again, the proration is not going to recur for fiscal 21, but it's going to be important for districts to continue to pay attention to the state revenue estimating conferences, which occur typically in January and May throughout the year. This year, there was a third one added in August, just given the issues that the pandemic was causing to the state budget and needing to revise, those revenue estimates before the final state budget was put in place in September. So it'll definitely be important for districts to keep an eye on that, see where revenue collections are coming in compared to what the budget is, and to look at that to guarantee and to focus on what the ending numbers are going to be at the end of the year to ensure there's no new talks of proration and to continue to look forward to fiscal 2022 as well. One last highlight to point out in this presentation, so that the district does continue to spend down dollars that were from the community-supported bond issues. And so this year there was additional capital outlay spent from those funds. $1.6 million was spent from those capital project funds that were funded with those bond issues. And so one thing that's just important to keep in mind is that without those dollars, the general fund, would be bearing the responsibility of those capital improvements. So just something that we wanted to highlight in this presentation as well. With that, be happy to take any questions.
There we go. I was having trouble unmuting. Okay. Questions from any of the board members? Nothing? Okay. All right. No, we will let that go. We appreciate your effort, and I know that our staff had to support that effort. I had a brief moment in there of thinking it's refreshing to talk finances instead of pandemic. Yeah. But anyway, thank you for that. You really did hit on, some of the history of school finance. And I know that we probably have some callers tonight that, haven't always been actively participating or watching board meetings, and to see that history from 2011 to present day, I don't care how many times I see it and talk about it, it's still dismally shocking to me. But most of you are well aware of that history, and it's just painful every time I see and hear it. So we'll keep pushing for public education as we all do. So thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate your work. All right. Agenda item 7A. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. And I'm sorry, I need to just jump ship over here. Okay. So do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
All right. I believe
Support.
that was Mr. Colling and Ms. DeLong. I think I heard you before I heard Mr. Ziegler. All right. Anybody have comments or questions about the consent agenda? All right, nor do I. So, Ms. Munger, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Bartle.
Aye.
Mr. Colling.
Aye.
Mrs. DeLong.
Aye.
Mr. Densler.
Aye.
Mrs. Munger. Aye. Mrs. Thomas August.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
All right, thank you. And just for the ease of the way the meeting is viewed, we continue to do roll call votes even when they're not an actual requirement. It just makes it a little easier for our audience to hear and understand. All right, we're going to move to agenda item 7B, the recommendation regarding K-12 in-person instruction. Dr. DePonio, please.
Thank you. Move to approve an alteration to the K-12 in-person instruction it would actually be December the 1st through December the 4th.
All right, can we? I'm sorry,
Support.
Was that, who made that motion?
It's Josh.
Okay, Mr. Densler with the motion and support.
Support.
Thank you. Mr. Cowling with support. Any comments or questions?
So just
Okay.
to clarify, I believe what we are currently voting on, the modification, is to suspend in-person instruction in lieu of virtual instruction for the dates listed.
Yeah, so let me run down the schedule so that it's clear. And of course, with the approval, we'll get information out to our families. On November the 30th, if you recall, on Mondays, we are virtual on Mondays. So that will not change. For our elementaries, on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, which is December 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, those that are hybrid, that would be moved to virtual. On December the 4th, it is a teacher records day, and so students are off on that particular day, and that would not change. So for our elementary students, what we're proposing here is that we convert those in-person days on December 1st, 2nd, 3rd to virtual days. For the middle school, same on November the 30th, December 1st through the 4th, that would be virtual instruction. We would be converting face-to-face to virtual instruction. And of course, the high school is still under the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services order for 100% virtual during that time period. So at this particular point, this shift would really not be a monumental shift. And again, it's being done with the anticipation of a rise in cases resulting from the holiday weekend.
All right. I just want to make a comment that we are fully aware that there are members in the community that are in different opinions on what is, either best or appropriate or desired or whatever word you want to use. But part of our goal from the beginning, as Dr. DePonio has stated more than once, is to maximize our total instructional time through the whole year. And so we have done an excellent job, in my opinion, of containment of cases. And I know that some parents are concerned when they see the COVID announcements come out. I guess it is in the perspective on whether that's concerning, because I am quite impressed with the announcements in that they have been individual cases, almost all stemming from outside of the school community, and being contained so that we have had very few, I believe one, Dr. DePonio, you can correct me if I'm wrong, one that was actually found to be transmitted within the school facility.
At this particular point, we believe that that's the case.
Okay. So we have done an excellent job, and I say we loosely because I don't mean me. I mean our staff and our staff as a whole has done an excellent job in terms of containment, and that is what lets us continue staffing. We have had one situation where we had a staffing struggle, so to speak, and our goal is to minimize those staffing issues so that we can continue to deliver education to as many students as possible over the duration of the full school year. So that's really an angle that I continue to, or a lens that I continue to evaluate our decisions through. So that's where I'm coming from. And thank you to all of our staff that has done a million little details to do our best to deliver education and keep our kids safe and keep our staff safe and keep our staff working. So an enormous thank you for all of that. If anybody else has any comments, I'll give it one more chance here before we request a roll call vote.
The last thing I would add to this, Sharon, is that, and I know there will be questions coming up, that if during that time period, if cases rise, would we reevaluate this? And that is most certainly the case, that we will evaluate this on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. And certainly if the health department provides us with the guidance that it is not safe to return the week thereafter or the weeks thereafter, then we would bring that back to the board. We'll continue to evaluate this situation as we move forward.
All right. Thank you, Dr. DePonio. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Munger.
Mrs. Bartle.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Mrs. DeLong.
Aye.
Mr. Densler.
Aye.
Mr. Colling.
Aye.
Mrs. Munger, aye. And Mrs. Thomas August.
Aye.
All right. We are looking at agenda item 7C, the confirmation of our COVID-19 learning plan for the 2021 school year. Ms. Weiss.
Thank you, Mrs. Bartle. This is our required reconfirmation, where we are required to reconfirm how instruction is going to be delivered on a month-by-month basis, have public comments from parent or guardians, which is included in our meeting as part of our Open Act, and then review the weekly two-way interaction rates. We went over this at length at the last meeting. So for time's sake, I will just say that what we are doing is reconfirming that our instructional delivery methods have not changed. We will continue to offer hybrid, virtual live, virtual asynchronous, and educational hard copy materials for pre-K through 12, unless directed by Health and Human Services to cease. We continue to provide additional support in person and virtual for our students who are at most at risk. None of that has changed. So we are just reconfirming that that will carry on. The last requirement that we have is to report our weekly two-way interaction rates. So I want to go over the next 4 weeks. We reported weeks 1 through 5 at the October meeting. We'll be reporting weeks 6 through 9 this evening. And week 6, the district percentage was 89%. In week 7, the district percentage was 90%. In week 8, the district percentage was 80%. And in week 9, the district percentage was 89%. Just as a reminder, the two-way interaction means that a student had an interaction with a teacher or a person overseeing instruction a minimum of 2 times in a calendar, which is Wednesday through Tuesday, the pupil accounting calendar, and recorded in that way. Quick note, the decrease to 80%, which is still above the minimum threshold of 75%, represents a 3-day week. Again, as the accounting is Wednesday through Tuesday, that was the Monday and Tuesday where students did not attend school. So we had district professional development on Monday and then election day on Tuesday, which were not student days. So even though the 80 seems less than the rest, that really represents that out of 3 days, 80% of our students had a two-way communication with their teachers.
All right. You know, that was going to be the first question. Thank you.
I try to anticipate those.
Right. All right. Can we get a motion, please?
So moved.
All right. Motion by Mr. Colling, support by
Support.
Mrs. DeLong. Thank you. All right, board members, do you have any questions? All right, there being none, Ms. Munger, a roll call vote, and let's make sure we're mixing it up, please.
Yes, we are. I figured it out. Mr. Ziegler,
Aye.
Mrs. Thomas August,
Aye.
Mr. Densler,
Aye.
Mrs. Munger, aye. Mrs. Bartle,
Aye.
Mr. Colling,
Aye.
and Mrs. DeLong.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Agenda item 7D is the personnel report. Dr. Lewis.
Thank you, Ms. Bartle. Would ask that the board approve the following personnel report. The first item for action is a non-unit, non-administrative title change. Kelly Biondo moving, the recommendation is that she move from interim early childhood coordinator to early childhood coordinator. This would be effective November 23rd, 2020. Move to accept the resignation of Ann Skelly, interim childcare programming and safety supervisor. Resignation effective November 23rd, 2020. The Lakeshore Federation of Support Staff move to accept the resignation of Joanne Guytek, SAC, Rogers Elementary, effective November 11th. Michelle Kiffel, lunchroom monitor, Masonic Heights Elementary, resignation effective October 28th. Jennifer Villasuarda, special education lunchroom aide, classroom aide at Kennedy Middle School, resignation effective October 3rd, 2020. Move also to accept the employment to our support staff of Megan Farrell, remedial specialist at Masonic Heights, effective November 4th, Class D, Step 4. Carrie Helton, remedial specialist, Masonic Heights, effective November 4th, Classification D, Step 3. Leanne Pritchard Harishko, remedial specialist, Masonic Heights Elementary, effective November 4th, 2020. Class D, Step 3. Stephanie Ruzinski, lunchroom monitor at Violet Elementary, November 4th, 2020. Class A, Step 1. Christine Weed, lunchroom recess monitor at Violet Elementary, effective November 5th, 2020. Class A, Step 1. And from the Lakeshore Federation of Teachers, move to accept the employment of Rebecca Asney, school social worker, working district-wide, effective November 16th, 2020, and she will be placed at MA Step 1 in the Lakeshore Federation of Teacher contract.
All right, that was quite a bit this evening. May we get a motion, please?
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion by Mrs. DeLong, support by Mr. Colling. Anybody with comments or questions before we vote? Okay. Ms. Munger, another roll call, please.
Okay, Mrs. Munger, aye. Mrs. Bartle,
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler,
Aye.
Mr. Colling,
Aye.
Mrs. Thomas August,
Aye.
Mrs. DeLong,
Aye.
and Mr. Densler.
Aye.
All right, and Mr. Ziegler, did I miss, were you trying to make a comment?
No, no, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so I believe that we may have somebody in somewhat of attendance, if we can call it that. Dr. Lewis, do we have any introductions?
Well, I do know that we have many of our new staff members that are watching tonight via YouTube, and this just is just a testament to the number of people in our community, and many of the people that you see here that we have hired tonight. We have former students, we have community members that are really stepping up and wanting to do their part here in Lakeshore during these times. So I'd like to just welcome everyone on the personnel report. And for those who have resigned for different reasons, I just want to thank them for everything that they've done for our students and for our district.
All right, thank you. I too wanted to just comment that it's certainly less pleasant having a virtual board meeting, and this is one of those moments where you really miss being in person. But the feelings are still the same. There's a sincere appreciation for the contributions made by those that are resigning or retiring, and just a sincere welcome for those that are joining our staff. We certainly wish all of you the best days ahead. So thank you for your contributions to Lakeshore Public Schools. All right, with that, we are going to move on to agenda item 8A, board member commentary. And we're going to let Ms. Thomas August go first.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say thank you, and I am humbled by the community support that I had during the election, and I appreciate this opportunity to serve on the Lakeshore Board of Education. I wanted to say thank you to all the staff throughout Lakeshore with all of their wonderful support that they're giving to the students and to our community during this very challenging time during education. And I hope everyone has a good Thanksgiving. Socially distanced.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Let's see, how about Mrs. DeLong?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Amy, welcome to the board. Looking forward to seeing you again in person one day, hopefully sometime soon. And to Michael, thank you for your service if you're still here. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at events down the road, and hopefully you'll take up Daniel's invitation to serve on the Lakeshore Foundation. I briefly represented the board with that, and they're a great group of people. So I think you might want to check it out. Also, welcome to all the new hires. I don't really need to comment on this whole COVID situation because I know we're all sick of it. I hope we can get through this, and I still feel that we are doing the very best job for our administration, our staff, our students, and our community with the plan that we are doing. And I just hope everybody has a very happy and healthy and safe Thanksgiving and holiday season. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. DeLong. How about Mr. Densler?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a whole lot. I'll give a welcome to Amy and to our new hires in the district, and another farewell to Mike and those employees that are leaving us. Just want to remind everyone to be to just be safe. I know COVID fatigue is a real thing, and like Sue said, we are all sick and tired of it. But it's important that we remain vigilant, especially as the holidays are coming up and there's expected spikes. Just remember to look out for each other, wear your masks, social distance. With that, I think that's all that I have. Have a good night and a happy and blessed Thanksgiving.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Munger.
Well, I think everyone's going to be short and sweet tonight. I remember when we went through the appointment process, I know Michael and Amy were my number one and number two. And so, I appreciate and want to say thank you to Michael for his quiet calm on our board and his insightful thoughts. We'll miss you and thank you for your service, and welcome to Amy. I'm excited to begin anew with you on the board. Thank you to everyone who chose me to be a part of the board again. I'm very humbled, and thank you for that. It's always to serve on the board for our community and our kids is very dear to my heart. Again, like everyone else, stay safe, have a happy Thanksgiving, and just be there for your family.
All right, Mr. Colling, you're up.
Sure. So welcome to our new staff. And I'll echo the sentiments that have been shared about all of our staff that are working hard to keep all of our students and other staff, of course, safe as well. I think the pause is warranted given the data and the current situation we're in. So I appreciate everyone following protocols and making sure that everyone is staying safe. I did want to highlight some good news. We talked about the foundation a couple times tonight, which I know Jack will be very pleased about. But I wanted to highlight that, we did meet last month since we last met as a board here, and that 2 grants were approved at that meeting. The first for a green learning area at North Lake High School, which I know will be very appreciated and used by the students there. And then also a gift wrapping project that'll be done by the National Honor Society at the high school. So good things are certainly still happening regardless of the situation and the challenges that we face here. And like Liz mentioned, I'm honored to be able to serve another term on this school board. So thank you all for tuning in and have a great Thanksgiving.
All right, Mr. Ziegler.
Okay. Mike, it was a pleasure serving with you. You'll be missed. You had a lot of good insight to this board. Amy, welcome aboard. To all the new hires, welcome to the Lakeshore family. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And Joe, you and your staff are doing a great job. Along with the teachers and the maintenance and everybody else. You guys are doing a great job in this difficult time. And hopefully we can get back to face-to-face learning and continue the fine job you guys do. Thank you.
All right, on my turn, I just have a few things. One is a reminder for the board members that the MASB does have a CBA Educational Opportunity Weekend coming up, December 3rd through 6th. If there's anything you're interested in and is available, I understand that for Amy, the initial class booked up like crazy fast, but they are coming up with some additional dates so that our new board members across the state can begin their education with the MASB. So anybody that is interested in taking some classes, if you need Shannon's assistance, I know she will offer that to help us get enrolled and participate. So I encourage you to do that. December 10th is our night joining our senior citizen community at Lakeshore Senior Living at 7 p.m., shining lights and spreading cheer and sharing smiles and all of those good things. I know that we've done that with the hospital in the past and for the sake of children, the idea of doing it on a local level with our seniors, especially during this particular season or year where their visitors have been so restricted. I think that's a fantastic idea. And I cannot wait to have an event to attend. And I hope I will see you all there. Again, that's December 10th at 7 p.m. And then I too just want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. Share the love and gratitude, maybe in different ways this year, but don't let the inability or the restrictions to gather with many people in person restrict your sharing of love and gratitude. So find different ways to do that. Phone calls and cards and letters and, meetings, whatever you want to do, FaceTime, whatever it is, just reach out to people. It will do you good and it will do them good. So reach out, enjoy the holiday. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion
Support.
by Ms. Colling and supported by Mrs. DeLong. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All right. Be safe and enjoy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thanks, you too, Joe.
Thanks, you too, Joe.